Many people believe that your skill in League is representative of the things that you do in-game. This is true for sure, but many people miss that the other half of your skill is the things that you don't do. In a more all-encompassing way, your skill is represented by the choices that you make, both what you choose to do and what you choose not to do. But no matter which way you look at it, it's always an active decision that you're making. Many players just fight everything that their team goes for. Objectives, invades, skirmishes, whatever it is happening on the map. They will just go with the flow of the game, and whatever happens, happens. And this is where I think one of the most important skills comes into play, which is saying no. Saying no to bad plays and building the confidence to do that was probably one of the most important skills I had to learn that helped me get to Challenger. It completely changed the course of games when I was able to actively give dragons, tell people to go and trade on the other side of the map, because losing games would turn into not as losing. We would be able to find some sort of comeback in gold. Maybe we find a pick. There are so many opportunities waiting for you. Many people just don't take them because they just go with whatever the game is giving to them. Hey, just quickly wanted to say that I'm doing a live coaching session stream 30 minutes after this video goes live, so you can check out my Twitch at twitch.tv/lawcentrial. It's the first link in the description. If you're interested, I'd love to see you there. Now back to the video. I think a lot of people don't really even consider the option of saying no. Many people just think that dragons are just what you fight over and you just have to go for it and your team's going for it or whatever. People like to argue that their team wouldn't listen if they try to ping back, and so they have to show up to the fight. This goes back to probably you're not communicating it well enough and you're not playing the odds game. But past that, I also think that people don't really want to take the driver's seat in their games. Like, people complain about not having enough control and feeling like the game is out of their control from teammates and whatever else. But the thing is, they never actually hop in the driver's seat and try to take over the game. And a lot of it's because it's uncomfortable. You can passively play League all you want. You can play for hours on end, just go, click into your lane, start hitting minions, start throwing out your abilities. 10 hours later, you haven't made any progress. That's just, you know, it's really easy to do. But what's actually difficult is to assess the map, figure out what the best play is, communicate it to your team, take an active role in communicating and commanding that play, and taking the responsibility if it doesn't go well. If you don't ever take responsibility for your plays, if you don't ever be the one to call the shot, well, you can't really be blamed when things go wrong. But the problem is, you can't be blamed for the play, but you're going to be blamed for your inability to climb. So the choice is yours. Take responsibility for your plays, actively make them and climb, or be too scared, not take responsibility, and be the one to blame for your own inability to climb. You know, it's like the classic Spider-Man quote, with great power comes great responsibility. Well, if you're never willing to take the responsibility, you're never going to have any of the power. Tim Ferriss, the author of The 4-Hour Workweek, advocates a lot to do things that will help you be uncomfortable. You have to kind of be comfortable with being uncomfortable in a way. He realized very early on that if he was always feeding into other people, letting other people kind of decide the pace of what he was doing, he was never going to get anywhere. He put a large value on his time and his efforts, and so he never let anyone else dictate what he was going to do with it. Set the rules in your favor. Do not let people interrupt you. Find your focus and you'll find your lifestyle. We want to be as efficient and effective as possible when we're playing League so that we can improve. And while the best thing that you can do with your time is actively make decisions so you can learn from them. If you never make your own decisions, you're never going to really learn if it was the right thing to do, because you'll never know what other options you had because you really never considered them. Why would you consider them if you're never going to make a decision in the first place? But the driver's seat is open. You just have to sit down and take it. And I think this kind of feeds into a broader topic, which is it's easy nowadays in general to just kind of let things go on autopilot. This is why I advocate so much for intensity and 3 blocks and being really intentional with what you're doing. Because if you have no intention, then what are you really spending your time on? But everything is kind of fed to you at this point. All the content you consume is fed to you by an algorithm. If you're on anything short form like Shorts or TikTok or Instagram Reels, you never decide what you watch. You just let something decide for you.
Normally what happens in a healthy identity is I have internal drivers, and that gets balanced with the outside world. The world expects this of me. This is what I want to do. There's a healthy conflict there. Now what's going on is we are numbing ourselves to the internal. There is no internal anymore, which means we become autopilot. What does autopilot mean? This means that my actions, my behaviors, my desires, my goals are actually being conditioned in my mind. I watch this kind of social media, I think I need a thigh gap. I watch this kind of thing, I need to get this kind of thing. I need to have a side hustle, right? I need to do this now. So now what happens, and then we feel like we're not in control of our lives because we have all of these goals that social media is feeding us. And then we get super confused. Should I do this, or should I do this, or should I do this? The reason you're confused is because none of it is coming from you. And this is what autopilot means, because we are not driving anymore, we are being driven.
So yeah, I think it's a scary thought to not really know if what you're doing or what you have your goal set towards is really what you want. And I think that this is why intention is so important. There's this quote from a really old Jibei video where basically Jibei says he had a teacher that told him, you should know what you believe and why you believe it. And I think that this is pretty applicable here. This is why I'm a big advocate for spending time away from constant consumption of content, whether it's not listening to music 24/7 or not scrolling through social media whenever you have the chance, or whatever time you have, just letting it be time to sit with yourself, maybe dedicate some time to do that. It will really help you get to more the bottom of what you truly want, because there's no outside influence telling you. There's time to think. But honestly, whether it's the algorithm or your teammates, you should not let something else decide what you're going to do. You need to be active in saying no to the things that are not good for you. If there's a play that's going to happen that isn't good, you need to call it off. You need to make the active choice and be the one to take responsibility. Whether things go wrong or things go good, there's only glory if you're willing to fail. Make sure that there is a clear intention behind what you do. To finish off, I want to give you guys some pragmatic advice when it comes to League of Legends specifically. The first thing is, I want you to have a reason for everything that you do in a game. Obviously, this is difficult to think of while you're going through the game, and I don't really expect that. But if there's ever a play that you're taking that doesn't feel quite right, or a play that you didn't really call, nor do you even know if it's the right play, I want you to have a reason for doing so. If you don't have a good reason for it, there's two options. First, you just don't know what the reason is, and it is the right play. Or second is that there's just no good reason to have. It may not even be that important if your reasoning is right or wrong. The only thing that matters right now is that you have a reason for doing what you're doing. Once you get better at really asking yourself if you have a reason for this, you'll get better at knowing which plays are good and bad for you. And the more you know which plays are good and bad, the more you can be assertive in your calls, either calling for plays actively or saying no to ones that you don't want to take. And honestly, I feel like this has been a really helpful practice in my own life, just in general. Like, whenever I was tilted after a game, I would usually go on my phone and watch videos that I didn't really care about, go on YouTube, distract myself. And then I started asking myself, why am I doing that? Well, it's because I don't like the feeling of being frustrated and tilted when I lose a game. So instead, I distract myself to get rid of the emotion, and I never really process it. I mean, I'm legit being an iPad kid, where whenever the kid is crying, just give him an iPad and he'll shut up. I was doing that just to myself and my own emotions. And once I started asking myself, is that really good for me? Well, no, I don't really think it is. And I've been trying to practice instead just sitting there, accepting the defeat, accepting that I made a mistake. And instead of having this pent-up anger that builds up time after time again because I never process that emotion, instead I get to process it right then and there. And it makes me way more calm and collected when I go into my next game. So honestly, I think that is just step one. Make sure you have a good reason for what you're doing and make sure you're not just autopiloting. And second is just make the call. Ping people off. Ping back, say no in chat, call a different play, do something different, make a different decision. If you can do that and be comfortable calling off things, taking responsibility for your actions, being the one to take the driver's seat, I guarantee that's where most of your success and your improvement is going to come from.